The massive ships appeared without warning in Earth's orbit one quiet Tuesday morning. They were unlike anything humans had ever built, gleaming structures that seemed to bend light around their hulls, with no visible engines or thrusters. Earth's governments scrambled their militaries, news stations interrupted regular broadcasts, and ordinary people stared up at the sky in wonder and fear. The aliens called themselves the Vex. When they finally showed themselves via global broadcast, they appeared elegant and advanced. Tall beings with smooth blue skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed with an inner light. They spoke perfect English, having studied Earth's transmissions for decades. "We come in peace," said their leader, who introduced himself as General Torque. His mouth curved into what humans would later realize was their version of a smile. "We wish to establish diplomatic relations with your species." Within days, the United Nations hosted the first official meeting with the aliens. Representatives from every major nation gathered in New York as 3 Vex delegates glided into the chamber. They brought gifts, small devices that could purify water instantly and crystals that generated clean energy. Dr. Mark Wilson, Earth's lead diplomat, presented human achievements in return. Our art, music, scientific advances, and technological innovations. He spoke with pride about how humans had overcome countless challenges throughout history. The Vex delegation exchanged glances. Then, to everyone's shock, they began to make a strange clicking sound. It took the humans several uncomfortable moments to realize the aliens were laughing. "You are very primitive," General Torque said, trying to sound polite, but charming like children taking their first steps. The room fell silent. Dr. Wilson's face flushed red, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. "We have much to learn," he admitted carefully, "but humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. We're adaptable and resilient." General Torque waved his upper right hand dismissively. "Of course, all species say similar things before they join the galactic community. You'll find your place, perhaps as artisans or service providers. Your planet has lovely scenery that would make an excellent vacation destination." In the following weeks, the Vex revealed more about the wider universe. Earth was just one small planet in a galaxy filled with advanced civilizations. The Vex were not even the most powerful species. They ranked somewhere in the middle of what they called the galactic tier system. The aliens shared some technology, medical treatments for previously incurable diseases, improved agriculture methods, and basic space travel enhancements. But they refused to provide anything they deemed too advanced for humans to handle responsibly. Captain Jane Miller of the newly formed Earth Space Defense Force watched the Vex ships from the window of the International Space Station. Her team had been training to represent humanity among the stars, but the aliens treated them like children playing with toys. "They think we're weak," she told her second-in-command, Lieutenant Dan Thompson. "They see our struggles as proof of inferiority rather than strength." "What can we do?" Dan asked, staring at a Vex cruiser that was larger than a small city. "Their smallest weapons could wipe out a continent." Jane turned away from the window, her eyes reflecting determination rather than defeat. "We keep learning," she said firmly. "We watch, we listen, and we prepare. History shows that the universe has a way of testing all civilizations sooner or later. When that test comes, I suspect adaptability might matter more than technological superiority." Little did she know how soon that test would arrive. 5 years passed since first contact. Humans learned their place in the galaxy, and it was not a high one. The Vex had introduced Earth to the Galactic Council, a group of 12 advanced species that govern most of known space. Humans ranked at the bottom of their hierarchy. Earth became a popular tourist spot for aliens. They would land in major cities, take pictures with quaint human technology, and leave generous tips in advanced metals and crystals that were common to them, but precious to Earth. Some aliens hired humans as tour guides, house cleaners, or entertainers, paying what seemed like fortunes to humans, but was pocket change to them. "Look at this," said Bill Foster, showing his friend a communication device given to him by a Vex tourist. They give these to their children as toys, but it's more advanced than our best military tech. His friend Jack nodded, examining the small metal disc. Did you hear? The council denied our request to join their space defense network again. Said we're not ready. Bill sighed. Of course we're not ready. They won't share the technology that would make us ready. The Vex controlled most trade between Earth and other worlds. They allowed humans to visit some nearby planets, but only on Vex ships with Vex guides. Humans who showed special talents were sometimes offered positions working for alien employers, but always in lower-level roles. Dr. Helen Ross was one such human. As a brilliant physicist, she had been invited to work in a Vex research facility on their home planet. She was the only human among thousands of aliens, treated like a bright but simple assistant. One day, Helen accidentally accessed a restricted database while searching for research materials. Before the system locked her out, she saw information about Earth that disturbed her deeply. The Vex had classified Earth as a resource planet, rather than a partner world. They had plans to eventually mine Earth's core for rare elements, once humans had advanced enough to build proper off-world colonies. When she returned to Earth on leave, Helen brought this information to Captain Miller, who had been promoted to commander of Earth's small but growing defense fleet. I always knew they saw us as inferiors, Miller said, reviewing the data. But I didn't realize they had long-term plans for our planet. There's more, Helen said. The Vex aren't as advanced as they want us to believe. They didn't develop most of their technology themselves. They traded or bought it from other species. Their main advantage is that they've been part of the galactic community for thousands of years. So they're merchants, not innovators, Miller noted, a thoughtful look crossing her face. Exactly. And there's something else strange. According to their historical records, none of the Council species have faced any major disasters or wars in over 500 years. They've had stability for so long they've forgotten how to handle crisis. Commander Miller stood up and walked to her office window, looking out at the gleaming Vex embassy that towered over the other buildings in the city. History shows that extended periods of comfort make civilizations vulnerable, she said. Humans have survived because we constantly face challenges that force us to adapt. Helen nodded. The Vex scientists I'd work with, Zor, told me that my problem-solving skills were unusual. When equipment breaks, I fix it with whatever's available. He always waits for the proper replacement parts. Keep your eyes open at that research facility, Miller instructed. Learn everything you can. Something tells me the peaceful stability of the galaxy won't last forever. Her words proved prophetic. 3 days later, the first reports came in of strange energy readings from the edge of the solar system. The Vex ambassadors suddenly became very quiet, their usual confidence replaced by something humans recognized all too well: fear. The strange energy readings grew stronger. Earth's scientists tried to study them, but their instruments were too primitive to gather detailed data. The Vex, usually eager to showcase their superior knowledge, remained unusually silent about the phenomenon. Commander Miller called an emergency meeting with Earth's Defense Council. Representatives from major nations gathered in the underground command center beneath Geneva. The Vex are hiding something, Miller said, pointing to satellite images showing Vex ships rapidly leaving Earth's orbit. Their embassy staff has been reduced by half in just 2 days. Defense Minister Garcia frowned. They claim it's a routine rotation of personnel. It's not routine, Dr. Helen Ross interrupted. She had just returned from the Vex research facility with critical information. I overheard senior Vex scientists discussing something they call the Void. They're terrified. Helen displayed data she had secretly copied from Vex computers. The screens showed dark, swirling masses appearing at the edges of several star systems. These masses seemed to absorb all matter and energy they touched. They call them rifts, Helen explained. They're tears in space-time that consume everything in their path. The Vex have lost contact with 3 outer colony worlds already. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Why haven't they warned us?" asked President Chen. "Because they don't know how to stop it," Helen replied, "and they don't want to create panic." Just then, alarms blared throughout the facility. The main screen switched to a live feed from lunar telescopes. A dark, swirling mass had appeared near Mars, its edges rippling like black water. "It's here," Miller whispered. Within hours, a Vex command ship entered Earth's atmosphere, something they had never done before. General Torque himself requested an immediate meeting with Earth's leaders. The Vex commander looked different now. His usually perfect posture was slumped, and his glowing eyes had dimmed. "We face a threat unlike any in recorded history," Torque explained, his voice lacking its usual condescending tone. "The rifts are expanding across the galaxy. Our weapons pass right through them. Our shields fail against them. 3 council worlds have already been consumed. Why tell us now?" Miller asked pointedly. "You've never shared serious threats with us before." Torque's 4 hands twitched nervously. "Because the rift near your Mars is behaving differently. It's growing more slowly than the others. Something about your solar system is affecting it. We need to understand why." The Earth leaders exchanged glances. For the first time, the mighty Vex were asking for help rather than offering it with smug superiority. President Chen spoke carefully. "We'll assemble our best scientists to study the phenomenon, but we'll need full access to your data and technology." Torque hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Agreed. The Council has authorized me to share whatever is necessary." As the meeting concluded, Commander Miller pulled Dr. Ross aside. "This is our chance," Miller said quietly. "Not just to save ourselves, but to prove our worth to the galaxy." Helen nodded. "I have a theory about the rifts. On Earth, we've studied black holes and quantum physics under much more limited conditions than the Vex. Sometimes, having fewer resources forces more creative thinking." Within days, Earth became the center of a desperate research effort. Vex ships brought scientists from other worlds, their formerly haughty attitudes replaced by urgent cooperation. Human physicists and engineers worked alongside aliens, bringing fresh perspectives to the crisis. In his small lab in Australia, Professor Richard Taylor, a previously unknown theoretical physicist, noticed something in the data that everyone else had missed. The rifts weren't random cosmic events. They were responding to certain frequencies of radiation, and there was a pattern to their growth. "They're not just destroying," he muttered to himself as he reviewed the numbers again. "They're consuming in a specific way, almost like they're hungry." As the Mars rift grew larger, heading toward Earth, Taylor sent his findings to the Joint Human-Alien Research Team. His simple observation, born from Earth's limited understanding of the universe, would soon change humanity's place in the galactic order forever. Professor Taylor's discovery spread quickly through the joint research teams. While Vex scientists initially dismissed his ideas as primitive, the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. The rifts responded to specific radiation patterns in measurable ways. "It's like they're alive," Taylor explained during an emergency global broadcast. He stood before a simple whiteboard covered in equations, his rumpled appearance a stark contrast to the sleek Vex officials nearby. "Not alive like us, but they react to stimuli. They avoid certain frequencies and are attracted to others." The Vex research director, senior scientist Locks, stepped forward with visible reluctance. "Professor Taylor's observations have merit. The rifts do seem to react." Within days, the Mars rift doubled in size, consuming Phobos, one of the planet's moons. Panic spread across Earth as people realized the danger headed their way. The Vex suggested evacuating Earth's leadership and top scientists to one of their safer worlds. Commander Miller refused. "We're not abandoning our planet," she declared during a tense meeting with General Torque. "If this thing can be stopped, we'll find a way to stop it here." Torque's eyes flickered with what might have been respect. "The offer remains open. Your species has shown unexpected insights. While the VEX focused on complex theoretical models and simulations, Earth's scientists took a more direct approach. They launched probes directly toward the Mars Rift, each emitting different electromagnetic frequencies. Most were instantly consumed, but the data they sent back in their final moments proved invaluable. In Houston, engineer Tom Wilson noticed something crucial in the probe data. Look at probe 7. It lasted 3 seconds longer than the others before being consumed. His team quickly identified the specific frequency that had caused the delay. It wasn't repelling the rift, but it was slowing its consumption rate. Within hours, they had designed a simple device that amplified this frequency. It's not a solution, Wilson explained to the Joint Command Center, but it might buy us time. The first pulse beacons were deployed between Earth and the advancing rift using modified weather satellites. To everyone's amazement, the dark mass slowed its approach when it encountered the frequency field. Meanwhile, in research facilities across Earth, humans approached the problem with practical solutions rather than theoretical perfection. In Mumbai, scientists used old radio towers to create a massive broadcasting array. In Rio, engineers converted sea platforms into giant pulse generators. In Nairobi, a team found ways to use the planet's magnetic field to amplify the protective frequencies. None of these solutions were elegant or permanent, but together they created a patchwork defense that slowed the rift's advance from days to weeks. The VEX watched with growing interest. Their own homeworld was now threatened by multiple rifts, and their advanced technology had proven largely ineffective. "How are your people so adaptable?" Locke asked Dr. Helen Ross as they worked alongside each other. "You create solutions from virtually nothing." Helen smiled tiredly, having not slept in days. "Humans have always lived on the edge of disaster. Our entire history is one crisis after another. Natural disasters, wars, plagues. We've never had the luxury of perfect solutions, so we learn to create imperfect ones that work well enough." As the Mars Rift finally stopped its advance, held at bay by Earth's makeshift defense network, an urgent transmission came through from the Galactic Council. The rifts had accelerated throughout Council space. 3 more advanced species had lost their homeworlds. The carefully ordered galactic civilization was collapsing into chaos. The message ended with words no human ever expected to hear from the mighty Council. "We request Earth's immediate assistance. Your methods, while unconventional, appear to be the only effective response to this crisis." Commander Miller looked around at her team. Engineers with dirty hands, scientists with improvised equipment, military personnel who had worked alongside civilians without hesitation. "Tell them," she said calmly, "that humanity is ready to help." The Galactic Council meeting hall was enormous, with soaring crystal ceilings and delegates from the 12 most powerful species in known space. For the first time in Council history, human representatives stood at the central podium. Commander Miller, Professor Taylor, Dr. Ross, and Engineer Wilson faced the assembled aliens. The atmosphere was tense. These were the same beings who had laughed at humans only months ago. Now, their worlds were being consumed while Earth still stood. "We thank the Council for this invitation," Miller began, her voice steady. "The rifts threaten all life. We must work together to survive." The Council leader, a being named Soren from a species known for their logic and calm, leaned forward. "We have reviewed your methods for slowing the rifts. They are primitive by our standards, but effective. We request you share all details immediately." Professor Taylor stepped forward, activating this simple holographic display. "The solution isn't just technology. It's approach. You've been trying to destroy the rifts or block them completely. That won't work." Murmurs spread through the hall as Taylor explained Earth's strategy in simple terms. "We don't fight the rifts head-on. We shepherd them, like guiding rivers with small dams and channels." The Council members looked confused. General Torque, now serving as Earth's advocate, translated, "Humans accept that they cannot defeat the rifts completely. Instead, they work to direct them away from populated areas. The council leader's expression showed clear disappointment. This is not a solution. This is merely delay. Sometimes delay is all you need, Engineer Wilson replied, stepping forward. He displayed images of Earth's global defense network. While we hold the rifts back, we evacuate threatened areas and research more permanent solutions. Dr. Ross added, your civilizations have been stable for thousands of years. You've forgotten how to handle ongoing crises. Humans live with imperfection and danger constantly. We don't need perfect answers. We need workable ones right now. The council fell silent, considering this strange perspective. Finally, a representative from a world already partially consumed by rifts stood up. My people are dying while we debate, she said, her translator barely capturing the emotion in her voice. If the humans can help us, let them try. We have nothing to lose. Within hours, mixed teams of humans and aliens were forming. Council ships carried Earth engineers and scientists to threatened worlds. Human military strategists worked with alien defense forces to coordinate evacuation plans. For the first time, humans were treated as equals, or at least as valuable allies. On the Vex homeworld, Engineer Wilson led a team installing modified pulse beacons around the capital city. The local Vex engineers were reluctant to follow his directions at first. The power distribution is inefficient, one complained, pointing to Wilson's hastily drawn plans. Inefficient but functional, Wilson replied, not looking up from his work. We can make it pretty later. Right now, we need it working before that rift reaches the outer atmosphere. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human ingenuity and resourcefulness clashed with alien precision and protocol. The results were neither elegant nor permanent, but they worked. In the Soren Central Command, Commander Miller watched as the defensive network came online around their homeworld. The approaching rift slowed dramatically as it encountered the frequency field. It's holding, she said, allowing herself a small smile. The Soren council leader stood beside her, his normally impassive face showing clear amazement. Your people built this defense system in 3 days. Our engineers estimated it would take at least 2 months. Miller shrugged. When your back is against the wall, you find shortcuts. We have never had our backs against walls, the leader admitted quietly. Perhaps that has been our weakness all along. As temporary defenses spread across council space, humanity's status in the galaxy underwent a transformation. The species once laughed at as primitives was now leading the fight for survival. 1 month into the crisis, temporary defenses protected most major populated worlds. The rifts hadn't been defeated, but their advance had slowed significantly. Now humans and aliens worked together on finding a more permanent solution. On the Galactic Council's Central Research Station, Professor Taylor worked alongside scientists from 7 different species. The laboratory was a strange mix of ultra-advanced alien technology and improvised human equipment. Cables ran across pristine floors, and handwritten notes covered holographic displays. I think we've been asking the wrong question, Taylor said, standing back from a 3-dimensional model of a rift. We've been trying to destroy these things. What if we tried to communicate with them instead? The alien scientists stared at him. Lox, the Vex researcher, spoke first. Communicate with a space-time anomaly. That's absurd. Taylor pointed to the data screens. Look at the pattern. When we broadcast certain frequencies, the rifts respond consistently. That's not random behavior. Dr. Ross nodded in agreement. If the rifts are some form of entity, or created by entities, maybe you're just hungry. They consume energy and matter in specific ways. The idea seemed ridiculous to the aliens, but with no better options, they agreed to try. Using the combined resources of Earth and the Council, they built massive transmitters capable of broadcasting complex patterns of energy toward the rifts. After weeks of trial and error, they discovered something remarkable. When fed certain types of energy in specific patterns, the rifts stopped expanding. Some even began to shrink slightly. It's working. Engineer Wilson shouted as they watched the results from the first test. They're responding to the feed. The solution wasn't perfect. The energy requirements were enormous, and each rift needed individual attention. But it was a start. On worlds across the galaxy, human-led teams implemented the feeding stations. They used whatever power sources were available, from advanced alien reactors to improvised solar arrays. The approach was messy and required constant adjustment, but slowly the tide began to turn. On a small moon base near the edge of Council space, General Torque watched humans at work with new respect. He approached Commander Miller, who was coordinating defense efforts from a makeshift command center. "I owe you an apology," he said simply. Miller looked up from her screens. "For what exactly?" "For underestimating your species." Torque's four hands gestured at the busy humans around them. "We judged you by your technology, not your spirit." Miller smiled slightly. "A common mistake. Technology is just tools. It's how you use them that matters." "The Council races have been stable for so long," Torque continued. "We forgot what it means to struggle, to improvise, to fight against impossible odds. Your people do this naturally." "We've had a lot of practice," Miller replied. "Earth's history isn't peaceful. We've faced disasters, wars, plagues. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. But we always adapted." As they spoke, a technician rushed over with new data. The feeding station on Xoran's moon had succeeded in reducing a major rift by 30%. It was the first significant victory against the threat. News spread quickly across Council space. After months of fear and retreat, hope began to grow. The rifts could be managed, perhaps even reversed. In Council chambers, the leader called for a special session. Representatives from all 12 advanced species gathered, along with a small human delegation. "We face a threat unlike any in our recorded history," the leader began formally. "Our advanced technology and peaceful civilization left us unprepared for crisis. But humans, a species we once viewed as primitive, have shown us a different kind of strength." The chamber, which had once echoed with laughter at human achievements, now fell silent with respect. "Humanity's gift to the galaxy is not technology," the leader continued. "It is resilience. It is the ability to face disaster without surrender. And today, we acknowledge that this gift may save us all." As Miller listened to these words, a small alert came through on her communicator. Professor Taylor had made another breakthrough. The rifts weren't just responding to the feeding. They were starting to communicate back. 6 months after the first rift appeared, the crisis reached its turning point. Professor Taylor's discovery that the rifts could communicate had changed everything. Working with a team of human linguists and alien mathematicians, they had developed a basic form of interaction with the strange entities. The rifts, they learned, were not weapons or natural disasters. They were living beings from another dimension, accidentally pulled into this universe through experiments conducted by an unknown advanced race. Lost and hungry, they consumed energy and matter to survive in a reality not designed for them. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, representatives from all worlds gathered to witness a historic moment. At the center of the chamber stood a simple human-made device, ugly and roughly built compared to the elegant alien technology surrounding it. "The translator is ready," Professor Taylor announced, making final adjustments. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed, but no one noticed such details anymore. "We can open direct communication with the primary rift entity." The council leader nodded solemnly. "Proceed, Professor." Taylor activated the device. The air in the center of the hall shimmered and twisted, forming a small controlled rift, safely contained within an energy field designed by Engineer Wilson. For the first time, the gathered species of the galaxy could communicate directly with the entity they had feared for months. The translation wasn't perfect. The rift beings thought in concepts alien to both humans and council races, but the core message came through clearly. "We do not wish destruction. The translation read as patterns of light pulsed within the contained rift. "We seek return. Help us go home." Dr. Ross stepped forward, speaking into the translator. "We will help you, but you must stop consuming our worlds." The agreement was simple. The Council would use its combined resources to open a stable pathway back to the Rift's dimension. In return, the Rifts would stop expanding and begin to withdraw from this reality. As the meeting concluded, General Torque approached Commander Miller. "When we first met, we laughed at your species' primitive technology," he said. "Now you have brokered peace with beings we couldn't even understand." Miller smiled. "Sometimes being less advanced has advantages. We're used to encountering things we don't understand." "The Council has voted," Torque continued. "Earth is to be granted full membership status immediately." In the weeks that followed, the Rifts began to retreat. Using the feeding stations created by human engineers, they gathered enough energy to start the journey back to their home dimension. The pathway would take time to build, but the immediate threat had passed. On Earth, crowds celebrated in streets still lined with makeshift pulse beacons. Humans who had worked on alien worlds returned as heroes, bringing with them new knowledge and technology freely shared by grateful council races. In a simple ceremony held at the United Nations, the Galactic Council officially welcomed Earth as its 13th member. The council leader presented President Chen with the ceremonial key to the council chambers. "Your species has taught us a lesson we have forgotten," the leader said. "True advancement comes not from technology alone, but from the will to face challenges and adapt." President Chen accepted the key. "Humans have always looked to the stars with hope and wonder," she replied. "We are honored to join the greater community, not just as students, but as partners." After the ceremony, Commander Miller found herself looking up at the night sky. The stars seemed different now that she knew what was out there. Not just advanced civilizations, but new kinds of understanding. Professor Taylor joined her, also gazing upward. "What do you think happens next?" he asked. "We keep exploring," Miller replied. "We keep learning. And maybe we help the Council remember something important. That comfort and advancement can make you vulnerable if you forget how to face the unexpected." In the years that followed, humanity spread throughout Council space, bringing their unique perspective to worlds far beyond Earth. Human problem-solving, creativity, and resilience became valued traits throughout the galaxy. And when new crises eventually emerged, as they always do, the former laughing aliens turned first to their human allies, having learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from perfect technology, but from the imperfect struggle to survive.